Hi, pursuers. Welcome to another episode of The Pursuit of Happiness. I'm your host, Naz Kazimi. Let's get right into it because today we are recapping The Real Housewives of Potomac, Season 10, Episode 10. So it starts off with Gizelle going to the Mercedes-Benz dealership. She's going in with her white G-Wagon that's gas powered, and she's now looking for an electric G-Wagon, saying that she needs to improve her carbon footprint in the world. And I sort of giggled at this because I was like, girl, there's a lot more that you need to improve of yourself in this world. But all in all, Gizelle is an OG. She's obviously made her mark on the show. She, as many people would say, carries the show on her back. She is a force multiplier in the words of Carlos King. But anyway, so she's there for that purpose. And then she's trying to say that, like the ice caps on the mountains are melting. So the polar caps. She's trying to say it, but instead she starts saying the glaciers are melting. But I am from Canada. I know that she meant to say the polar caps on top of the mountains are starting to melt. Again, these are the perks of living in a country or coming from a country that used to be extremely cold. That's where I grew up. I moved from Iran to Canada when I was 4 years old, so in 1988. And I lived in a even colder province. The name is Alberta. Lived in Red Deer, Alberta. Now imagine we are a Persian family in the 80s, early 90s in Red Deer, Alberta. I feel bad for my dad. I'm sure he encountered some forms of racism back then. I fortunately have never experienced it. But then in 95, we moved to British Columbia. We had cousins that lived out there. Long story short, I mean, everywhere is starting to get cold. When we had first moved to BC, British Columbia, short for British Columbia, we call it BC. There was not much snow, and then within the first few years, there was this huge snowfall. And we came from a place where we had the four seasons, and so I told my mom, I'm like, would we bring the snow with us to British Columbia? And ever since then, every few years, there's been a huge snowstorm that shuts down the city. I know this is a little bit digressing, but the thing with BC, and this is exactly why I moved out of Canada in general, is that it's like a rainforest where we used to live, the Pacific Northwest. So for literally 8 to 9 months out of the year, it's dark because of the time change and the way that the sun rotates around the earth and the axis that the earth sits on during the seasons. And it's wet. And it's not even a warm rain, it's a cold rain. So you're wet and cold. And it's also dark. And that's 9 months out of the year. It just really brutally sucks. The summers, yes, are gorgeous. But even then, like, as the years went on, there's just so many more people that fluctuate. And because you only do have 3 to 4 months of things to do before the weather turns again, every spot that you go to is packed with people. You can't, like, for example, in Mexico, I can find a private beach and just sit there. The weather is good 24/7. And the times that it rains, which has only been twice since I've been here in 2 months, I'm walking around with no t-shirt. I'm walking around with no t-shirt on because it's just so warm outside, and the amount of rainfall, I mean, it can get a lot. But again, I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia. Nothing phases me. But that kind of goes into what I was just saying about the weather changing. I think the weather's changing all over the world. But for that reason, I personally wouldn't change to electric quite yet. And if I did, it would be hybrid, because just in case, we lose electricity in the world because of I watched The Day After Tomorrow as well with my daughter yesterday. You just never know these natural disasters that are going to wipe things out. I still need to, or want the car to be able to be powered by gas so we can move, Anyways, I totally digressed right there. But these are the things that go through my mind when things like that pop up, Anyways, back to the Real Housewives of Potomac. Wendy comes to meet up with Gizelle at Mercedes. Now, I'm not at all a Stacey fan, but Wendy's saying that when people can't verbally express how you're doing, they mimic it. It's a little bit hilarious because no one wants to be Wendy, trust me, especially not now. And I know that she's defending Wendy. I mean, I know she's defending Stacey here because even we saw at BravoCon, which just was like close to almost a month ago, you saw that Wendy was there and she said that Stacey has been by her side through all this arresting and getting charged and etc. The investigation, you know. Um, I don't even think Stacey wants to be Wendy, to be honest. And like, not only does Stacey has this amazing body and she's gorgeous, and Wendy with her education honestly would look so much more mature and elegant if she had just said nothing at all. Like, there's enough people. There's 345 million people living on this planet, living in the United States. Trust me, Wendy, there is enough cannabis dispensaries to go around for everybody, you know. Anyways, Tamara and Eddie Judge, yeah, and then this is the next part of my notes. Wow, you guys, I'm all over the place. I'm so sorry today. Okay, Tamara and Eddie Judge also, they didn't come out and say Wendy is mimicking them. Again, I put this in my notes. The U.S. has a population of 45 million. It's safe to say that they need more THC CBD cannabis dispensaries. They'll be fine if every housewife ever that's been on these shows decide to open up a cannabis dispensary. I'm pretty sure that everyone will do well. It's just the amount that there are to the amount of the population. It's just it doesn't even match. So Wendy has nothing to be worried about. Wendy just wants something to talk about to make, you know, it seem like it's all about her. I used to be one of those people that even if someone bought the same shirt as me, I'd be like, oh, she's trying to copy me. Now, when it comes to style, I find it different. I did put this in the notes. But anyways, we'll get there when we do. Let me just try to follow these notes so I'm not all over the place when I'm chatting with you guys. Now, I agree with Gizelle because Gizelle did mention that Stacey is sneaky and moves like a snake. That part I do agree with. Even if it's white lies, like they're just weird. Like, why are you saying weird things? You know what I mean? Moving right along, the sales guy comes and brings him the key, and now they're riding in the back of the electric G-Wagon. And I really felt so bad for him because the way that the camera, like there's no cameraman in there, but the way that they have the cameras pointed, like you could just see him sitting there like listening to this conversation. And I was joking with my daughter, and I'm like, he's probably the only one that signed the release or wanted to sign it or whatever to be on TV, and therefore he was allowed to be on TV. And so it's just so awkward because he's listening to these ladies bitch and gossip, and he's like, what am I? And like literally in some scenes, he's like front and center while Wendy and Gizelle are off to the side. It was just funny to observe. So Wendy and Gizelle continue on to discuss Monique being back. I'm happy she's back. I keep laughing whenever I hear Pastor Holy Whore. Honestly, she's the best. And my daughter was like, well, who's Monique? I mean, she was way too young when I used to watch it, nor was she sitting watching it with me. Now she's a little bit older, so she does watch some of the Housewives with me. So we actually went back and we watched the fight scene because my daughter had heard so much about it, and then we watched the reunion, the important parts of the reunion, and of that season, which was season 5. Let's just say, like, Pastor Holy Whore definitely took the title for that, and I think Gizelle forgets how she treated Monique. Like, okay, that was the last episode, you know, because the reunions are the last few episodes of the season. And I think Gizelle forgot how she treated Monique because she wants to be so upset at Monique for bringing up like 2 or 3 points at the reunion. Even going back, I don't think that watching it back made anyone look any better. In fact, it made everyone look any worse because most of the women, Wendy has gotten progressively worse. Gizelle has stayed the same or even gotten worse. And by that, I mean like bringing things up to the group and kind of being an instigator and not having the support of the other women. You know, I do like the cast now a lot better. Like, I'm kind of glad that Candace is gone. I did love Robin, but also Karen's not there. So the dynamic has definitely shifted. But it's just so interesting to see. And again, does not make the rest of the cast look any better going back to watch. You know, sometimes you go back to the previous seasons and it does make some of the cast members look better and you're like, okay, well, I understand why she's gotten worse. It doesn't. Like, they've always been the same. If not, they've gotten worse. And Monique kind of looks like she's the star, and even better now because she's become zen and kind of like gotten more in tune with herself and just kind of gotten back to herself and really dug deep to become much more self-aware of her triggers and just to let go of the things that really bothered her, you know? Stacey is having coffee. So now the scenes change, okay? So now we're going to Stacey having coffee with her best friend AJ, she's releasing her cannabis brand on Juneteenth. And she's also the first black woman in the state of Virginia to have her own cannabis business, which is, great. Congratulations to her. Now, Stacey does invite the entire group to her cannabis release party. And then it goes to show Tia. Tia is a realtor and she's talking to, I guess, her boss that maybe she needs to open up her own agency, her own brokerage because the workload is just becoming too much for her. So, and this is typically what happens. You go into real estate, you start doing well, you start being inundated with many more clients than you can handle. And then what ends up happening is you now start hiring staff and now you start managing the staff that are managing your leads, et cetera, and you also get a part of that commission, right? So Tia's one of my favorite seasons. So Tia, Monique, and Angel are actually all my favorites. They're all new cast members with the exception of Monique, who was on, but then she took a 5-year hiatus and then she came back. Now I love Tia's suit in this next scene that's coming up. She is the lover of all. I'm the lover of all things pink, but her style is so unique. Like, even in the confessional where she has like kind of like the rope, the rope looking tube top, as we call it, or bandeau. I love it. It looks just so chic and unique. But anyways, Tia calls Stacey, accepts her invitation to her cannabis launch, and also suggests maybe they have a conversation because she's really not happy with Stacey, but she will be there to support her. So I thought that was nice. It's nice to see. Although, this is me not speaking in hindsight, this is just me going scene by scene. We do end up seeing what happens later on. But, in hindsight, should she have gone? I think in hindsight, and we're going to get there when we get there, but Stacey invited these people. And half of them don't show up because they don't get along with Stacey. But half of them decided that even though they're mad at her, they will show up to support her. This is where she should have kept her mouth shut and said, let's have these conversations not here, She even went to an event and it was someone's event. And she's like, I don't want to discuss it here. Let's just discuss it sometime else. But then when it comes to her event, she kind of sort of sabotaged it. And, now she's yelling at people on the day of her event, which is a product launch. And it just doesn't look good as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Anyways, the next scene shows Josh and Ashley walking into an arcade-type restaurant, holding hands. I really felt bad for Josh here because he was just doing his best and they seem to be having a good time. Then they're sitting down and they're eating and she's trying to convince Josh that she basically needs someone way richer. Let me just paraphrase it for you. Which I think is gross and honestly, she'll never be happy going down that road. I mean, was she happy with Michael? So people can give you the private jets and all these luxurious vacations, but are you happy? But when I see her with Josh, she's genuinely happy. Now, where's a happy median in there where she doesn't want to take care of somebody? But do we know that she was taking care of Josh? Josh even said, how do you know my financial, situation? I think when you truly love somebody, you kind of stick it out with them. She can also have boundaries and be like, I'm not, going to cover anything, unless it's a date or whatever, and it's her turn to do something to surprise him. Or whatever. She can have strict boundaries about that, but allow the person to develop and see where they go. I find that she was happiest when she's with Josh. They have the most fun. She laughs the most and she just becomes her giddy little self. But I didn't see that with Michael at all. So yeah, it was sad to see. She let everyone get into her ear seriously about Josh, and all I have to say is good luck, Ashley, because the type of man that you're looking for, also billions of other women are looking for. So, if you find them, great. Congratulations. Now we get into the scene where Gizelle finally meets up with Monique. Monique walks into the restaurant. They're pretty happy to see each other. They give each other hugs. And Monique gets right into it. She expresses that she's been delivered and she's done lots of self-reflecting to hold herself accountable and all the events that had taken place in her life up until the point of her divorce, which is something that I do as well, and I think it's so remarkable. Everyone I'm in between a rock and a hard place with, I reflect on what I did that ended me up here. For example, if someone had convinced me that it was a good idea to do something and I went along with it, but it was actually a terrible idea, I always think that it's my fault for believing them and allowing them to convince me, because I'm stronger than that. I shouldn't have allowed anyone to convince me. So I always take the blame first and the accountability first. And the next time I just need to evaluate my standards of believing people or trusting people. And then that lesson also teaches me who to trust and who not to trust. Or there's certain pieces of things of people that I will trust. For example, if someone's a great entrepreneur, I will trust the entrepreneurial skills. But if someone doesn't really know the back mountain and wants to go hiking and they've already taken me down a bad hike before, I'm not going to trust them when they say, hey, I got another good hike that we can go on, you know? So these are lessons that you learn, and the reflection always begins with me. And I feel like it's something that Gizelle doesn't do necessarily, or it doesn't show her doing. I think that sometimes when you have the quote unquote force multiplier of the cast, or someone that pushes the storyline, they're the last person to be accountable for their actions. They just want to move things along. So if they're the person that's to be least trusted because now they've released a secret about someone, etc., these are the things that they're not going to be like, you know what? Let me be accountable for this, because they just kind of want to move the story along, which I want to be as real as possible. But if they're fake, if it's a fake thing, like moving the story along and not having it organically happen, and by organically, I mean, don't let it be 10 seasons and people just like beating around the bush until something gets out, because it's organic. I know that someone kind of has to like pop in like, oh, I heard this, or, you know, but also being too much makes it seem too fake as well, you know, if that makes sense. They ended the conversation, honestly, on a good note. They promised each other more conversations and trash talking, but if the trash talking is done, there must be a face-to-face conversation about it. And again, this is typical Housewives protocol, to bypass holding the grudges. I know Tamara is very infamous for doing this. Like, she is very good at shit talking, but then also apologizing later, because, you know, in her eyes, and she's a seasoned vet, the show must go on. Now it gets into another scene of Greg, Greg has invited Angel and Kay's mom, Michelle, to help go ring shopping for Kay. And I heard somewhere in there that Greg is buying Kay's condo as a wedding gift, and told Michelle that he's going to move into the condo with Kay with the ring on her finger. Michelle is Kay's mom. But yeah, when they've looked at all the rings and they finished having their conversations, he still wasn't ready to make a purchase yet. But Angel and Michelle were convincing him, don't worry, they know what she likes. He just needs to purchase it. But I feel Greg was probably fronting that he's rich, or else why would he be just acting so cheap, especially on camera? Like, even if she doesn't like it, just buy it there so that you save face for the camera. And then you can always go back and exchange it, or put a deposit down, or whatever. The deposit, you can always switch on the rings. You know what I mean? You could always tell the salesperson, don't go ahead with this yet until I confirm it, but I'm going to put the deposit down for now. If we have to switch which ring it is, we can always switch it, and I can put it towards another ring. You know, something like that. Like, it was just so weird, that scene. Anyways. One thing about that, actually, I find it kind of interesting that Angel and Kiana have known each other for 20 plus years, but yet Kiana pulled that whole stunt with Angel when she first came into the group. It just, I don't know, it still does not sit with me the right way. Anyways, I love Ashley's little sister. Then there's now the next scene about Ashley going with her little sister to do a little bit of shopping because she's going away to college. They honestly both look exactly like their mom, but yet them two look nothing alike. Individually, they both look exactly like their mom, though. It's crazy. Now, Jessica, Ashley's little sister, did not think that Josh was good looking enough for Ashley, but honestly, I'm curious what she would think about Ashley, Michael Darby. Like, I'm so curious what she thought about Michael Darby. Wow, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm trying really hard to like not make mistakes moving forward, but I think the harder I try, the more I make them. So just bear with me on this episode, okay? It's quite early in the morning. So this next part really broke my heart because I'm also a child of an addict, but I'm also a addict myself. Jessica crying about her alcoholic father. I 100% understand how that is, because my father at one point in his life was also an alcoholic. The behaviors that they exhibit at times, you just don't recognize the person that is there, you know? And I'm not going to get into it right now, but there's so many things I remember about my dad that were so demonic, you know? So I really do feel that when people drink, especially when it's alcohol, like it's like a demon just kind of goes through them, and hence why the name spirits. That's why they would call the drinks spirits, like the rums and the whiskeys and all that, because it was almost seemed like they were taken over by spirits when people would drink back in the day, and then prohibition, and then all that kind of stuff, because alcohol is just, it just brings out the worst in people. I've never seen someone drink and get drunk and be like the best version of themselves, with any drug. But I'm just saying alcohol the most. Like, sure, I've seen people have a drink or two and they loosen up, but they're still a bit sloppy, and even that loosening up, and they're starting to act weird, and okay, you don't want to act so stiff, but is alcohol really the one that's going to loosen you up in a more elegant manner? And then I'm sure there's going to be people out there that hear me say that, and they're going to be like, well, no one wants to be elegant when they're drinking. That's the point. Like, what? Then why drink? Like, I just don't understand. And I'm not judging. I was never really an alcoholic. I did drink a lot, though, during my, partying phase. It was more other things I was into. Mind you, I also have ADHD. But it's just fascinating for me to see how it's so socially accepted. And in Jessica's case here, she's kind of sad because this person that she loves, that's her parent, she's had to put up some boundaries. And this person has now gone their entire life and not really seen how this has not only affected them, but the people around them. And now you're in a position that you have to put up this strict boundary, and it's like, how did we get here? And how did this person that's supposed to be the adult in the situation not really understand that this is where it could lead, And hence why Ashley says, at some point you get to a point where you just realize that your parents are just regular people, and they also have their flaws and they make mistakes. And that's so true, When I was younger, I used to think, I don't know what I used to think about my parents, but I was definitely much more scared. I was one of those kids that was scared of them. And as I got older, and here's another thing, I believed everything that they said, and I didn't question it. And as I got older, I realized that they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They misinformed me on a lot of topics, and I didn't trust anybody else, but I 100% trusted them. They didn't put me in dangerous situations, but they weren't always 100% forthcoming with me as well. And I do hold some resentments against them, because I wish that they had just kind of taken the time to have taught me better when it comes to things like that. Things about life and just street smarts, etc., etc. Next scene is Eddie and Wendy going to Eddie's pop-up. So Wendy actually wasn't invited to Stacey's launch, which is so weird because they're the closest out of everyone in the group. But Stacey says that it's due to conflict of interest. Now, I find that so weird because it's an external event. Like even the public is invited. It's not like she's showing how things are being made in the back or how the marketing is being done, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that may be, or being in the board meetings, that may be an conflict of interest. But imagine if actors or actresses were not allowed to go to each other's premieres, because now it's considered a conflict of interest. What? I don't understand how Stacey even came to that rationale. It made zero sense. But then Gizelle, Kiarna, and Angel actually specifically declined Stacey's invitation. Jazzy, Tia, and Ashley are the only ones that actually showed up. And Ashley and Tia already have some beef with Stacey, but they decide to show up just to be supportive, because that's what women do. And also Stacey has supported Ashley with her events, so Ashley's like, it's only best that I go and I support her. But Timo doesn't show up. And I think that's because he just doesn't want to be around the group. I know that he met Tia, but even probably after meeting Tia and then finding out that Tia and Stacey kind of got into a tiff afterwards, he's like, this is exactly why I don't want to come to these things. I don't want to meet anybody. Now, if you want to go down the path of Stacey's copying everybody, I guess you could say that Stacey wants to be like Ashley too, because honestly, this is straight copying style. I told you, when it comes to style, I find, yes, people can copy. Now, there's different ways to look at this, and I always try to tell this to my daughter as well. It's like, listen, there are how many clothing stores in the world, and how many outfits do they make? And let's say there's one specific, I know, for example, stores, even, okay, let's take something general, like Amazon. The things that are available in Amazon Mexico are going to be similar to what's available on Amazon Canada, but maybe slightly different, because it's going to cater to more products that the Mexicans want. Amazon Canada is going to cater a lot more to products that Canadians need. For example, there's not going to be boots and heavy rain gear available in Amazon Mexico. There will be boots and heavy rain gear, but not as much and not as variety as or snow gear that you're going to find in Amazon Canada. Like there's different types of catering that needs to be to that specific area, region, country, territory, etc. Right? So when you have clothing stores, I can see how people that live in a certain area or are part of a certain group or kind of always run into each other, their styles might be similar. It's like women that hang out together, their periods start to sync together, you know? But this, 2 or 3 outfits that are exactly what Ashley has worn, and after Ashley has worn it, I find like straight style copying. Sorry, Stacey, but I mean, you might not want to be like Wendy, but you definitely cop the styles from people that are around you. Like there's no originality in her business idea or her fashion sense. It's just what she sees or observes from other people. And she's like, that might be nice. And again, it's understandable because you're around these people a lot. Typically, people that roll in the same circles or even cities typically tend to have similar styles. But like, this is so obvious. You guys are on a show together, you know? So first, Stacey pulls Ashley to the side at her event to chat. I think this is the wrong place, wrong time, Stacey. It's your event. You want to be mingling with the crowd. You don't want to be like, you know, starting beef with the women on your cast, especially when they already have beef with you and they're here to support you. Ashley says, no more lies. No more lies. No more lies. And Stacey's saying, no more hazing. No more negativity. No more evil. It was so like I was embarrassed for them. Okay. Then they turn the conversation to Tia and Stacey's like, you know, I want to chat with you now, Tia, while she has Jazzy and Ashley and AJ there. And Tia's confused because Stacey lied to her, but also Stacey isn't comfortable bringing Timo to have dinner with Wendy and Eddie quite yet. So in this situation, I understand both sides because Tia feels like Stacey lied to her. And she did. She fibbed a little bit because she was uncomfortable saying yes to a dinner that had Eddie and Wendy there for whatever her reasoning is. So there's a reason why Tia's mad because she was lied to. But also on the other end of it, what Stacey had told Tia with Timu in front of her shouldn't have been repeated to Wendy. And even if it was, and Stacey gives another answer on the phone, I think at that point Tia should have kind of questioned, okay, why is Stacey saying that? Instead of being like, what the hell, she's lost her mind, blah, blah. But again, I understand why Tia would say that because it makes Tia look bad. The only reason I kind of have Stacey's back in this is because I support it. I do understand that sometimes you're just not comfortable introducing your significant other to a group of people that you are not comfortable with. It's always hot and cold, and they always flip at the flick of a switch. So you're just kind of like monitoring, like when's the best time to introduce, if there ever is a best time to introduce them. So I get both sides when it comes to this. I think though that like once Tia and Stacey are talking to each other in the group at the event, Stacey should have been honest about like 1000% honest. But it's confusing the other women, and Tia's wondering how can she have her back when she's not being forthcoming and honest with her. Which I agree with. Like for example, after that conversation, maybe when Timu's not around, Stacey could have contacted Tia and been like, listen, I know you invited us. Thank you so much. I just need to be honest with you. I'm just not comfortable bringing Timu around them as a couple-on-couple kind of date. So if you could just kind of keep it amongst us that you met him, and then I can, you know, talk to them about it at a later time. Now they get into it so bad that now they're yelling at each other, and then Stacey actually kicks Tia out from her event, and I just find it so like just classless. Like, come on, you guys, like especially Stacey, like this is your event, like you shouldn't have even gotten into it with them. Like you hold the power. You could have been like, look, thank you so much for coming to support me. Let's have a conversation sometime this week. For now, let's just, you know, I'm gonna go make my rounds with the people that are here, but thank you again so much for being here. Take a couple photos, invite them into the back for some snacks and drinks and whatnot, and kind of keep it that way. I think the next time they do see each other, it'll lessen the blow a little bit, you know? It was just handled wrong, I think. There should be no having of these conversations at professional work events, especially when it's the launch of your business and you're the face of the business, and like no one really knows you quite yet. This shouldn't be the first impression that they get of you. So that was the Real Housewives of Potomac. It's definitely gotten a lot more juicier as the season has gone on. Again, Stacey's kind of in the middle of all the barrage between her and all the women. I'm excited to see how the season plays out. I think I heard that there was 5 to 7 more episodes left, and I know Karen comes back for some of them, so it's going to be interesting to see her. And plus we have Monique, who's graced the screens with her presence, so I'm excited to see the dynamic. Sorry guys for being all over the place. I don't know why my mind is, it's probably the ADHD brain. I was gonna come and record this and put it out yesterday. I just was exhausted yesterday. I wasn't feeling my best, so I just took that day off. But you know what? Here I am. Brain's a bit scattered. I don't have my ADHD medication. That is coming over Christmas when my family comes to visit because they're bringing my prescription for me. So maybe that's why it's a little bit hard for me to follow a straight line. It's like all over the place. But thanks again for tuning in. I know that Vanderpump has another episode. I'm going to be recapping that soon. I'm just going to start watching them now, recap them. Those will be either out later on tonight or tomorrow. But with that being said, have a great rest of your days. And I will see you on here soon.